Hello, good afternoon.
Hello.
My name is Sarah Garrigill, and I work with the Living Archives Project, where we are collecting stories of how COVID 19 impacted various communities in Charlotte,
Mhm.
Mecklenburg County. Today is May 22nd. Oh, yes, 2023, and this week there were 20 reported cases of COVID 19 in the Charlotte, Mecklenburg County area, which actually shows an 18% decrease over the last 2 weeks. Therefore, each subject is comfortable not wearing a mask. Willie, would you introduce yourself?
My name is Willie Ratchford. I work as the executive director with the City of Charlotte's Community Relations Department, and I have been blessed and highly favored to have worked this job. This coming August the 20th will be 48 years.
Wow.
Still having a good time. Have been, as I say, blessed because I have a job that I like doing, and I know a lot of folk who don't like their jobs. I am a father and a grandfather. I have 5 grandkids, and I have 3 daughters, and a lovely wife, and just they're just the absolute perfect family, and just love spending time with them.
That's amazing.
Mhm.
Would you briefly describe your physical appearance for us?
I am an African American male, soon to be 70 years old. I have gray hair, except my beard is not gray, because some folk think that I dye it, but I don't dye it. I give it the treatment, and there's a difference. I am about 6 feet tall, weigh 200. It's been a long time since I weighed 100 something. I weigh 210 pounds, and I smile a lot. I like smiling because I believe everyone should be happy in life.
I love that. That's so beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for that. So Willie, let's start from the beginning. Where did you grow up? Or how long have you lived in Charlotte?
I have actually lived in Charlotte about 59 years ago, 59 years now. Was born in a small town called Chester, South Carolina, which is right below 77, right down below Rock Hill on Interstate 77. My family moved here when I was in the 3rd grade and have been here ever since. Went to elementary school here, went to junior high school here. However, when I got ready for high school, I actually participated in a program called ABC, or Better Chance, and actually went off to North Andover, Massachusetts to go to high school.
Wow.
And ended up being in Massachusetts for 7 years because with 3 years of high school, also attended Tufts University for 4 years and graduated. Was about to go to work in Massachusetts until I realized that after being there 7 years, I never got used to the cold. So I moved back to Charlotte, North Carolina, where it is much warmer.
Oh, so much warmer.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. And you've been here ever since.
I have been here ever since.
That's amazing. So tell me a little bit. I know that family is super important to you.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit about your family and
Well, my wife, Deborah, was born in Walterboro, South Carolina. She went to Johnson C. Smith University and graduated in 75, the same year that I graduated from college. And she tells the interesting story of how when her family came up for her graduation, her father brought this big U-Haul truck up so that he could move her back home. And she did not have the heart to tell them that she was not going back until they got here. Walterboro is a small town, and I think she decided that she liked big city life more, and so ended up staying here in Charlotte. We've been married this past May the 10th, will be 43 years now. And we have 3 lovely daughters, Sarah Elizabeth, Arista McKinley, and Ariel Simone. And then we have 5 grandchildren, 2 grandsons and 3 granddaughters.
that's lovely.
Yes.
Do your daughters live nearby?
No. My daughters, my youngest daughter went to college in Atlanta. In fact, as she was growing up, we asked her one day, we said, Ariel, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she said, I want to be a rapper. And my wife looked at me and she said, you better talk to that girl And I said, well, we can't kill her dream. And so, fortunately, wanting to be a rapper grew into, no, I really want to produce music. So she went to the Atlanta School of Audio Engineering. And when she went down, when her older sister and my middle daughter visited her, they looked around and they said, Mom, Dad, we like Atlanta. And they moved to Atlanta, and they've been there ever since.
So
Yes.
all three of your daughters.
All three are in the Atlanta area.
Wow.
Yes.
So do you get to go to Atlanta to visit?
Yeah, we visit quite often. In fact, the baby daughter and my middle daughter came to visit my wife and I just this past Friday, and they brought my newest grandbaby, Judah, to visit us. And it was really amazing watching Judah because this is the first time she had been in under one roof with as many people. And she really enjoyed. She's 6 months, but she knew that she was at a different place. She knew that her family was there, and she just had the time of her life. We had a really wonderful time with her. And they left last night and then woke up this morning and realized, I miss her.
Oh,
Yes, but just a really wonderful time. Yes.
Those special moments. Oh my goodness. You have to savor them.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Yes. So tell me a little bit about how did you come to your position with the county and 48 years of working with the city? That's incredible.
Yes. So the first 5 years I worked with the city, I worked with a department called Neighborhood Centers, which was actually in this building when it was initially built about 47 years ago. And I worked there 5 years and then took a position with the Community Relations Department as a Community Relations Specialist. And 12 years after starting work for Community Relations, got an opportunity to become the Executive Director and have held that position for the past 27 years now. And just have been such a blessing in terms of this work because I really like my job.
Yeah.
My wife thinks that I'm crazy because I'm happy to get up in the morning and go to work. But it just has to do with the job that we have. Our job in part is to promote community harmony and to ameliorate the current effects of past discrimination. Because in terms of race relations and racism, what happened in this country 400 years ago, 300 years ago, 100 years ago, even 10 years ago, impacts how we get along today. And it's our job to promote opportunities which allows people to get over race, to get over those divisions that we use to divide ourselves, and just interact with one another as humans, and really be the best that we can be. So, and it just really makes a difference. And it's just something natural for me about that I really enjoyed. And so I'm blessed to have this job.
That's amazing. So for someone that doesn't exactly know what this community relations mean, what would you share with them?
I would say that community relations is actually the city and the county's race relations organization. We enforce the city and the county's fair housing laws, which prohibit discrimination in housing practices. We enforce the city's non-discrimination law, which prohibits discrimination in employment as well as access to places of public accommodation. And then the city has a policy called source of income protections. And so we enforce that policy also, which prohibits discrimination against persons with certain properties that receive government funding, local government funding. They cannot discriminate against people if they receive those funding. And it's our job to see to it that they adhere to the policy. We run an ADA program, the city's ADA program, so all of the ADA work is done out of this office or coordinated out of this office. We run a dispute settlement program, which takes 2,500 cases out of the local criminal justice system each year, and we resolve those through mediation, which means people who successfully resolve their mediations don't have to go to court, hire a lawyer to get that work done. If anybody feels that he or she is a victim of discrimination, they can come to us, and where we have authority, we will engage that authority to make sure that people are doing the right thing. And when we don't have authority, we will simply try to use our powers of persuasion to convince folk to do the right thing.
I love that. So I can imagine that over the last few years that the pandemic has really impacted your work as well as, of course, your personal life. But can you tell me a little bit more about how did COVID-19 impact the city and your department?
Well, COVID-19, when we first started to hear about it 3 years ago, it was different. And I think I found myself like a lot of humans in across the country and here in Charlotte. I said, well, this is just not going to affect anything. It's going to be over in a couple of months and we can move on. But over time, things just got a little more serious and you realize that it was impacting folk. And we kept hearing all of these stories from across the country where people were dying and morgues were stacking up and these big trailers that they use as temporary morgues were starting to stack up. And we realized this is like really serious. And the city got to a point where it made a decision that all non-essential employees of the city would start to work from home. And just based on the very nature of our work, which is to come into day-to-day, face-to-face interactions with people, I got to thinking, well, this is not going to work for us, and I don't know how to work from home, so this will not work for me. But over time, I came to realize that human beings can be as innovative and as creative as they want to be, and so you find a way to make it happen. And we were literally out of the office for almost a year and a half or two, working from home, and we successfully got our work done. We had to become used to a new normal, and with almost any new normal, when it first happens, or you realize that you have to get used to something different, it seems rather impossible or difficult to do. But once you get into it, you realize it wasn't that bad at all. So, but it was a major adjustment, but we were still able to get our work done. Not just our department, but practically all of the departments of the city of Charlotte. Of course, we had essential workers such as police and fire and garbage, and they still came to work and they performed their duties that they're obligated to do by being city employees. But it was truly an amazing experience. And I think my family, as a result, grew closer because we were all there together every day. And you had no choice but to grow closer.
Yeah.
Throughout the pandemic up to now, I personally did not believe that I would get COVID. But as it turned out, I did. In fact, everyone in the family at one time or another got it. But even though we were all there in the house together under the same roof, we didn't all get it at the same time. We had cases where we were literally months apart in terms of getting it. And fortunately for me, when I got it personally, I had already had 2 shots and 2 booster shots at that time. And while I felt bad, based on stories about how other people were feeling, I realized that it wasn't that bad. And within a week and a half, all of my symptoms were gone. I tested for like 3 days in a row after taking the proper medications and all, and tested negative for 3 days and was able to come back to work because we had returned to work by the time I got COVID. The whole time I was home while my family members got it, I never got it until I returned to work, returned back to work in the office.
Okay, yeah. And so when you did get COVID, how did that make you feel?
At first, I couldn't believe it. I sort of panicked a little because I'm thinking, okay, well, dude, you one of the older adults, and a lot of older adults where the outcomes with COVID are not that good. But as I say, I think because I had the shots and the boosters, it wasn't that bad. You're a little lethargic and tired, and some aches and pains where I had not had them before. But just laying around the house, resting, taking in lots of fluids, and within a week I literally was over it. But it was an experience, and I think practically everyone in my house who had it who had also had the shots and the boosters. Our experiences were very similar and did not turn out to be as bad as some that we know. In fact, we actually know of people who got COVID, people who've been in our lives for a long time who ended up passing as a result of COVID. So we realized how blessed we were.
I'm so sorry.
Mm.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
And it does put things into perspective.
It really does. It really does. One of the interesting thing about COVID for me was it just seemed like a natural thing to do what's necessary to protect yourself, especially when they came out with medication or the shots that could, if not prevent it, mitigate symptoms once you got it. And it just always amazed me the number of people who refused to take the shot. And I guess I was really ticked off when I saw situations where you had certain politicians who would advise people not to take it, but then you would hear of a story in the news where this same politician and his family would put on disguises and go take the shots. And so I'm thinking, how can we be so vulnerable that we would allow people to do our thinking for us and make those type of decisions regarding our health? How will we allow anyone other than us to make those decisions about our families? It was just really interesting. But again, as I say, most folk I know took their shots. They did well, but we had a few who refused to take the shots, and some who turned out to be perfectly fine and all right, and some who did not fare so well. Yes.
Did you find that it was really concerning in your family? And I imagine that some of your daughters were living in Atlanta at the time. So there was a separation.
There was a separation with my daughters down in Atlanta, and I kept wondering and praying that they would not get it. And I said, in fact, my wife and I had a conversation one night, and we asked ourselves, well, if they get it, are we going to drive down to Atlanta to take care of them? And if we do, how do we avoid getting it? And we realized that, and once we got word that they got it, we realized it was best that we stay home. They have family and friends down there who love them just as much as we do, and they ended up taking care of them, and their journeys through COVID, again, was not that bad. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that, because I know with that separation, there's an added element of fear of not being able to be there and be present physically, and it can be challenging.
To your point, it was a challenge, and the thing being is that if you have a child and that child gets sick, you want to be readily available at the drop of a dime. And if they're a 4-hour drive away, you can get there. It's just going to take some time. And we all have had that situation where we've had a family member that we needed to get to. They're a 4 or 5 hour drive away. And the 4 or 5 hour drive starts to feel like a 10 or 12 hour drive because you're just thinking about it too much as you're driving there. Yeah. And it just seems like you're never going to get there, but you always do. Yes. You always do. So I guess with that, one of the things about COVID was that it taught us patience. Things don't always work out the way that you want them to work out. And sometimes you just got to be patient in life and pray and good things will come to you. Patience and prayer always leads to good things in my belief.
That's a wonderful perspective. Before we started recording our conversation, Willie, we did an activity together called a hand map. Is there anything from your hand map that you would like to share with us?
Wow. I would like to talk about. I put down that I am a collaborator, and collaboration is about creating win-wins. Whenever you have two human beings who might have conflict, they can use any of the 5 conflict resolution styles to determine how they're going to resolve that conflict. And so you can start with competition, which is a win-lose way of dealing with conflict. But in competition, one person wins and the other person loses. And so what that means is that the conflict never is over, or at least it's not over for the person that has lost. Then you have accommodation. And accommodation is a win-lose proposition where you don't want to argue with a person, you don't want to bump heads with them, so you accommodate and you give in to them and give them what they want, and they win. And you only lose if you leave that situation thinking about what you woulda, or you shoulda, or you could have done, or if it's still bothering you and you're thinking about it. Then avoidance, which is a win-lose proposition. So for instance, if you and I are in a room, we have one orange and one orange only, and your position is, I want the orange, and Willie's position is, he wants the orange, then we have a conflict. And if we compete to see who's going to get the orange, one of us wins, one of us loses. If we accommodate, one of us wins, one of us loses. If we compromise, and a lot of us think that compromise is a really great thing, and it's a good thing, but it's not as great as it's made out to be. If we compromise, we split the orange down the middle, and you get half and I get half. But what you really wanted in your heart of hearts was the whole orange, as did I. So compromise doesn't give you all that you might need or all that you might want. Then you have avoidance. Avoidance is a lose-lose proposition, again, using the orange. If you and I are in a room again with the orange and we both want it, but if we avoid it long enough, the orange rots and you lose and I lose. So avoidance is lose-lose. But collaboration is different from the other styles in that it requires that you sit down and have a conversation with the person, preferably a need-to-need conversation like we're having right now. Because by having need-to-need conversations, what it causes you to do is to look up, and on the other side of your knee is another human being. It's just a human being that you're talking to, and this communication and this talking causes us to realize that we have a lot in common. In fact, a whole lot more in common than differences that we might have. And again, using the orange analogy, if we have this conflict over the orange, if we collaborate, we start off being stuck in our positions with you saying, I want the orange, and me saying, no, I want the orange. If we collaborate, we talk about our values, we talk about our interests, we talk about our needs. And lo and behold, through the course of conversation, we determine that you want the orange because you want a cup of orange juice, but that I want the orange because I want to cook an orange peel cake. So because we've talked, we can work that out. We cut the orange, we squeeze the juice. Your needs have been met, you win. I then take the peel, I grate it. My needs have been met, I win, I make my cake. And so we've created the win-win for everybody. But that only happens if you have the conversation. And that is what this work that I do with the Community Relations Committee is all about. It's just getting people to sit down, have the conversation, find out what you have in common, and find out those things that creates the win for all parties involved. And so I am a collaborator.
I love that.
Yeah.
Wow, such a wonderful metaphor, and thank you so much for sharing that.
Mhm.
Appreciate that. And collaboration is so important.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else from your handout that you would like to share with us?
Wow. I've had multiple occasions for people to tell me that I am a kind person. And I don't know that I ever thought of myself as being kind, except I hear that a lot. And I believe in giving, because if you pay it forward, it always seems to come back fourfold, fivefold, tenfold. Something nice always happens. And I think I realized the kindness just based on a conversation I had with someone about my mom. They said, "You like your mom, who was a very kind person." And I've come to realize that as it was said, that you were kind of just said, "You like your mom." I'm sorry.
Please don't apologize.
Yeah, but it's kindness just really makes a difference. Yeah.
It does. I mean, I've only met you today, and from the moment I met you, your genuine, kind, welcoming spirit was very felt.
Thank you. I also have on my list that I'm patient, and I haven't always been a patient person. But I've come to realize a long time ago that patience just runs your blood pressure up. It doesn't change anything, and it doesn't fix anything. So being patient truly is a virtue, as they say.
Yeah.
So I try to be a patient person. And in this work that I do, I'm a civil rights worker. But in addition to being a civil rights worker, I'm also a board member of the Jamie Kimball Foundation for Courage, which is a domestic violence organization. And our job is about preventing domestic violence or intimate partner violence. And I had the opportunity to have someone ask me, why do you do that particular work? You're a civil rights worker. And I realized that in doing civil rights, we've had a lot of gains in the civil rights movement over the years here in this country. But that only happened because good white people stepped up to the plate to help black folk fight this fight. And people who didn't step up, they saw civil rights as just, that's a black person's issue. But it's not. It's an everybody's issue. And so, and I say all of that to say that one of the reasons I think I do this domestic violence work is that we look at domestic violence as a woman's issue. And in the same way good white people stepped up to help black people in the civil rights movement, men have got to step up to help women in the domestic violence issue. So I think that's one of the reasons I am a member of the Jamie Kimball Foundation, and I take the time to address domestic violence in this community.
So well said. And so important. Thank you for sharing that.
Some other things that I have here is I said a race to just be human. And again, it's just amazing to me how we use these things like race and other ideas to divide us and divide who we are. When the truth of the matter is that we're just human. And in this work, this civil rights work and human relations work that I've done for 40 plus years, one of the things that you come to learn is that there really is no such thing as race. It's a concept that humans started using about 400 or 500 years ago. And the markers that we have identified as race, the color of your skin, the coarseness of your hair, the broader your features, the lighter your skin, the finer your hair, the narrower your features. That's simply nature's way of protecting us from the violent rays of the sun. And if you go back far enough in your ancestry, the closer your distant ancestors were to the equator, the darker their skin, the coarser their hair, and the broader their features. The further away they were from the equator, the lighter their skin, the narrower their features, and the finer their hair. And again, these were just nature's way of protecting you from the harmful rays of the sun. But we human beings, in our arrogance, we took those things and we decided to make them markers of race simply for the purpose of exploiting other human beings and making money, which is what race is all about. Yeah.
Tell me a little more about that, because over the last 3 years, this has been especially, over our entire lives, this has been a conversation, but over the last 3 years in Charlotte, there's been a lot more protests and conversations around this area. Can you share with me a little bit more about that and your perspective?
I think we've had a lot more protests because people who have been marginalized, the invisible people, people are just sick and tired of being sick and tired. And they've come to realize that if we're going to make any changes in this community, no one's going to give you anything. You've got to stand up. You've got to be seen. And if you can protest in a peaceful way to achieve that, then we're going to protest. Those folk will protest in a peaceful way to achieve that. And some folk think that they have to protest in a violent way. But I think it's just people's way of saying that we matter to and we count to and see us. But they've also, and you mentioned conversation, they've also realized that what it means is us talking to one another. Can we sit down and have a conversation where we don't attack, shame, or blame anyone, but just have the conversation? I had mentioned earlier that this work that we do is race relations work. And many years ago, we would have race relation dialogues in this community. And we get a bunch of white folk and a bunch of black folk, and we throw them in a room and say, okay, you guys have an honest conversation on race, only to realize later on that these folk thought that we were absolutely crazy. And what we come to realize over time is that to have an honest and easy conversation about race between blacks and whites in the same room is really an easy conversation if you have relationships ahead of time. You like each other, you know each other. It is a really easy conversation to have. And I think the fact that it's so difficult for some of us still means that we don't have those relationships across racial lines. So my thing nowadays in my work is to advise everyone that if you want to improve race relations, just get to know someone of a different race or someone who you see as being different. And once you do get to talk in the same way that we finally got these black and white groups to have the conversation with one another many years ago, it is amazing how black folk and white folk and Hispanic Latinos and Asian and Pacific Islanders, amazing how much they realize they have in common when they sit down and just talk to each other. It's like you heard me mention that there's no such thing as race. There are lots of things in my mind which is a little wonky at times, that informs that. So, for instance, I have a group of friends, guy friends, these black men and white men, and we get together every once in a while and we talk, have a good time, and we talk about our wives and our families and our children. But the interesting part of the conversation is the conversation about our wives. And all of us end up leaving the conversation thinking that we're married to the same woman because black marriages and white marriages work out exactly the same. So this is like, whoa. And in fact, I often tell the guys, I say, look, guys, I say, here's how we know that there's no such thing as race. I say, white women use the same 4 words to terrorize white men that black women use to terrorize black men. We need to talk. Which just messes a man up. It's like, oh my goodness, what did I do this time? And oftentimes she haven't done anything. That's just her way of messing with you. But it happens the same with both black and white marriages. Or the time we talk about you come home and you think everything is fine and your wife is upset and she won't speak to you. And both the black guys and the white guys ask their wives the same question, what's wrong? And you get the same answer, nothing. So it's like there's something that it says that's the human response, which has nothing to do about race. Yeah. And so we need to start concentrating on the human response and forget about what we think is the racial response, because it doesn't exist. Yeah. Wow.
So well said. Thank you for sharing that. To respect your time and to honor you, I'm just going to follow up with one last question. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us? Maybe a story or an experience or anything?
Wow. Well, first of all, I would like to thank you all for this opportunity to just blabber off and to talk. Or to communicate, really, because communication is important. There's a reason Winston Churchill says, courage is what it takes to stand up and speak out, but courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen. And then some folk will say, well, yeah, that's true. And in fact, there's a reason the word listen and the word silent contain the same letters, because that's truly how we do communicate. And so my closing statement would be one about the need for us to start communicating with one another better, communicate with one another more than we do across lines of difference. If you look at across the country, there just seems to be so much division. And we seem to have all of these bubbles across the country. There may be like 100,000 bubbles with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people contained in each bubble. And the flaw with the bubble system is that everybody that's contained in the 100,000 bubbles think that their story and their gospel is the truth, and everybody else is wrong. And that can't be true. They can't be true. And we'll never know that whether they're wrong or right if we just stay contained in our bubbles and don't venture out of those bubbles to go to the other bubbles to have the conversation and communicate with those other folk. So if we're going to deal with better race relations, if we're going to deal with better relationships between men and women, if we're going to deal with more better ethnic relations, if we're going to deal just better with anything, it simply requires that we take an opportunity to just talk to one another. Let's talk. As Rodney King said many years ago, can we talk?
Yeah.
Can we talk? And I think that we can. It is not as difficult as we think it is, and you don't know that until you try it.
Yeah.
You don't know that until you try it.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you
Absolutely.
so much, Willie, for your time, for your story, and for your wise words.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.